Okay, my Law and Order fans. This one right here is pretty big. This is the big one right here. So, to those of you that saw the latest episode, I mean, you're probably thinking the same thing that I'm thinking. What is going to happen with Joe Velasco? Now, this article here, according to Express, SVU fans are outraged as they work out Velasco exit twist. Olivia Benson and Grace Muncy put their detective skills to the test in the latest episode of SVU as suspicions over their colleague Velasco reached new heights. This was according to Alex Davies. Joe Velasco, played by Octavio Pisano, has only been in SVU for a couple seasons, but now his place on the team is now under more threat than ever before. In the latest episode, Benson and Muncy were torn after discovering Velasco had seemingly confessed to a murder on a covert recording, and it's led a number of fans to fear the worst for the detective. To recap, Velasco's confession came earlier in the series when he was trying to pry information out of a prisoner. Of course, twisting the truth isn't exactly a tactic unbeknown to the detectives in the Law and Order universe, but Velasco's struck a different chord. Not only did he make the confession, which in itself is rather damning, but he deliberately made sure he was on his own with the suspect before he did so. Now, here was the quote. The quote was from him. He said, I grew up a lot like you. I've seen a lot of people get murdered. And the second my nuts dropped, my boss, he put a gun in my hand and made me blow this guy away. I've never told anybody that until now. Now, once Benson got her hands on the recording, her moral compass went askew as she tried to work out if Velasco's words were legit. Turning to Muncy, Burnett's character did her best to try and convince Benson it was all a ruse to get information. And the screen froze. So here's the deal. Now here we go. The screen unfroze. However, both didn't seem too convinced that they'd be able to dismiss Velasco's confession as a mere bargaining chip. As if their reactions weren't enough to spark Velasco exit speculation, NBC viewers also witnessed Bruno being offered Amanda Rollins' old desk. With Benson's team now seemingly bursting at the seams, could it tee up Velasco's exit from the action? Some fans are fearing the worst and aren't too pleased with the possible replacement storyline. Somebody on Twitter said, please don't tell me they're bringing in this new detective to phase out Velasco the same way they brought in Muncy to phase out Rollins. Blah, blah, blah. So, now this has fans debating. So, what was the reason he told that to the suspect? Now keep in mind, he was alone with the suspect, so is it possible that what he said was true and he did have to blow a guy away, like blow his brains out? Or is he just using a tactic as a detective to get the truth out of the suspect? Now, this one actually has two sides to it. Now, side number one, we have to remember, it's not like detectives in this show and many other crime shows, I mean, if you've watched them, and other shows that are within the Law and Order universe, SVU, Criminal Intent, Organized Crime, whatever it may be. We've seen other detectives and other cops that they've lied to get to get the suspects to confess. We've seen that. We've seen one scene where Stabler put an onion in his shirt, and so it looked like he was crying, and we saw how that turned out to be fake on his part. I think the suspect there had confessed or made a borderline confession or something. But then there's other times where a detective might be telling the truth about their life. For example, Benson talks about herself being the product of rape, and that's true. Her biological father was a rapist. So, I mean, it's possible that, again, side number one is it's a tactic just to get the person to confess? Side number two is that the reason why he wanted to be alone with the suspect so he could spew that? Now, again, if that was true that he did that, that may not have been the best way, because that suspect could have used that against him. He could have spilled the beans on it. This whole thing is all over the place now. And I really hope that there's going to be an episode the following week, and hopefully they don't make us wait 2, 3, 4 weeks for the next episode. This is another question that has to be answered. They cannot leave that floating in the air. Now, again, as I've stated before, there are many other characters that this show has had, and they've been gone. They had to leave the show for various reasons. You know, some of them had committed crimes and went to jail, like Dana Lewis, who was played by Marsha Gay Harden, and Chester Lake, who was played by Adam Beach. You know, they had to go because of their crimes, and they both turned out to be murderers. And then, of course, some other people left the show just, you know, arbitrarily, just out of the blue, you know, like Stabler and Cabot, Novak, a few others. Others were killed in the line of duty in other circumstances, like Sonia Paxton or Mike Dodds, people like that. Some of them had took their lives, like Ed Tucker. So the question is, did Velasco make a confession? Did he just make a murder confession, or was he lying just to get another confession? So this is a tough one right here, folks. This is a tough one. I'm going to leave that to, you know, you all are free to comment and speculate. Tell me your thoughts. Tell me what you think. If he ends up committing a crime and he has to go to jail for it, I mean, what's going to be your thoughts on that? But this show has switched out a lot of characters, by the way, just a lot. Velasco seemed like a cool character. You know, he's down to earth. He seems like he's an honest guy. But, I mean, if he committed a crime, and if he really did that, then he has to go away, because that is law. You can't just, you know. So, I mean, people, what do you think? Because I'm kind of, I'm right in the middle of this. I really don't know much. I don't know what else really to say about this. There's not much else to say about it. So that's the question comes down to. Did Velasco confess to murder? You tell me what you all think. I'd like to hear your thoughts.